So, good morning, students, and welcome back to our online classes initiated by Rishiram Shikshan Sansthan, Joshara, Uttarkashi. And today's subject is English for class 9th, and we are going to continue the story which we have left behind. That is the story of the Happy Prince. So, let us proceed from where we have stopped in the last video. Um, when the swallow when the swallow plugs out the eyes, both the eyes of the prince, and he decided himself that he will stay with the king forever with him because now he is completely blind. Therefore, he decided not to leave the prince. Now, so all the next day he sat on the prince's shoulder and told him stories of what he had seen in strange lands. So when the king now completely became blind, so now the sparrow acted, or we can say the sparrow narrated the things that was going around in the city, or we can say that was going around in the strange land means the various places. Wherever the sparrow could see, he could report or he could tell those incidents to the prince because now the king was completely blind. Dear little swallow, said the prince, you tell me of marvelous things, but more marvelous than anything is suffering of man and woman. Now the prince remarks to the swallow that he says that though you are telling me a very marvelous means very wonderful. So though you are telling me wonderful things, but more marvelous than anything. He says that more wonderful than anything is suffering of man and woman. And there is no mystery so great as misery. And the king and the prince says that misery is the one of the most mysterious thing in this world. So fly over my city, little swallow, and tell me what you see there. And he requested or he ordered the sparrow to fly over the city and observe the things or observe the difficulties of men and women living in that cities and report him what all he saw in that city. So the swallow flew over the great city and saw the rich making merry in their beautiful houses, while the beggars were sitting at the gates. So when the prince told the swallow to fly in the city and tell him all the things, all the situation that is taking place in that strange land or in the various places in that city, and so the sparrow flew and went to the city, and when he flew to the city he saw that rich making merry in their beautiful houses. Rich people are spending their life in their beautiful houses while the beggars were sitting at the gates. So the only way of earning of the beggars are that for asking, or they are totally dependent on other people. If other people gives them something, then only they get food to eat. And he flew into dark lanes and saw the white faces of starving children looking out listless and at the black streets. And after looking at the rich making merry and with their beautiful houses, and the beggars were at the gate, and very he flew in the dark lanes, and there he saw the white faces. So the situation of starvation, it makes the whole body pale and white. And that situation when he saw the people, those children starving, and their faces were pale and listlessly here means as if they do not have life in it, as if they do not have life in them. So the children were their faces were white and they were starving, and they look like they do not have, or they look like as if they are without a life. Under the archway of the bridge, two little boys were lying in each other's arm to try and keep themselves warm. So under an arc means half semicircle, we can say. Under the arc of a bridge, there were two little boys lying under it, and each other the arms to lying in each other's arm. They were lying in each other's arm so that they can keep themselves warm, because now the winter has started in the city, or in the city of the happy prince. Therefore the outer temperature was colder, and therefore to sustain in such a cold place, so they were trying to adjust themselves within each other's arms so that they can feel or they can feel warm, or they can get warm from each other's body. And how hungry we are, they said. And when they were lying in each other's arms, they said that how hungry they were. And you must not lie here, shouted the watchman, and they wandered out into the rain. And after that, when a watchman saw them lying under the arc of the bridge, the watchman ordered them and shouted at them that you are not supposed to lie here. You're not supposed to lie here. So after listening to the watchman, they wandered into the rain. Again, they wandered means they ran into the rain. Then he flew back and told the prince what he had seen. Now, these all situations, these all conditions which he saw, the starvation of the children, and the two children lying under the arc of the bridge, and the beggars were waiting at the gate. So these all situations, or these all circumstances he presented to the prince. And uh, I am covered with fine gold, said the prince. And after listening to his remarks and after listening to his observations, the king said that now that he was covered with fine gold. Fine gold means we can say a thin layer of gold. As described earlier, the statue of the prince was made up of thin gold, means it was thinly covered with gold, and you must take it off leaf by leaf. And he says that the my whole statue is covered with thin, or you can say it is thin, gold coated. So you, what you do, you take part by part from my body these gold and give it to the poor, and give this and distribute this gold to the poor people. Uh, the living always think the living always think that gold can make them happy, and they think that to sustain or to live in such a situation in a very difficult conditions, like the beggars, the children starving. So for them, the gold was it would be a precious thing, and through this gold they can earn some amount of money and live their livelihood, and they can, and that living particular moment, or living in such a bit of moment of happiness, that will make them very happy. And leaf after leaf of fine gold the swallow picked off. And after the king or the prince ordered the swallow that you take leaf by leaf, means a part by part you take from my body, or sorry, from my statue, and distribute these gold to the people who are in need. And he picked off leaf by leaf of the fine gold, and picked off till the happy prince looked quite dull and grey. Here, quite dull and grey means that the prince now, because his sword, the ruby was taken, plucked out from his sword, his blue, his sapphire, transparent blue precious stones, those both eyes were plucked out, and it was given to the person who was in need. And after that, now still he is distributing all what he had, what all the precious things he had, he is still distributing it leaf by leaf. So when all the leaf by leaf were distributed to the poor people, or to the needy people, now the look, the whole structure of the happy prince was dull, quite dull and grey. Means quite dull and grey means the whole statue of the prince was not very attractive as it was in the beginning. Now, leaf after leaf of the fine gold he brought to the poor, and the children's face grew rosier, and they laughed and played in the street. So when he plucked off leaf by leaf from the body of the statue, now those thin gold leaf by leaf brought happiness to those people who are in need. It gave them food, it gave them happiness, and as the happiness grew, the faces of the children grew rosier. So the faces, their face earlier, the faces were very uh, we can say very pale. It was because due to the starvation, and now the face of those children grew rosy, means like a rose. So if you see a rose is a very attractive, means rose is for, we can say, for used for attractive manner. So therefore the faces of the children now grew very attractive, and they laughed and played in the street, and they enjoyed their life, and they played in the street. Now we have bread now, they cried. And while playing and laughing in the street, they also said that they have bread. Bread means here they have food to eat. And those food were brought by leaf of the thin coated from the statue. Then the snow came, and after the snow came, the frost. Now the time with the it became the time was of winter, and now slowly snow started coming in that city. And when snow falls, you know that everything in the area slowly frost. It means it is a process of, we can say, of freezing, where the things started to freeze. So when the snow came, and after snow came the frost, the streets looked as if they were made of silver. Now, whole street was filled with the snow, and it seems and it appears like the whole street was filled with silver. And everybody went about in furs, and everybody's clothing, the clothing of they were fur, or we can say the jackets were of fur, because to protect themselves from the snow, or protect themselves from the cold. So all the people were wearing fur, and little boys wore scarlet caps and skated on the ice. And the people went, everybody went about in that city. They wore furs in their neck, around their neck, and the little boys wore scarlet cap. Means the little boys, though they wore scarlet, means a bright red cap. So they were wearing bright red cap and skated on the ice. And they skated on the ice, means moved on their skate. And the poor little swallow grew colder and colder. Now the sparrow could not, or we can say the sparrow could not, we can say, could not bear the situation, or could not bear the climate at that city. And he now grew, the body temperature of the sparrow grew colder and colder. And but he would not leave the prince, but he had decided, or he was determined, that he will not leave the king. And he would not leave the king, and he loved him too well. And the sparrow now, due to his devotion, or we can say the kind hearted of the king, the giving nature of the king made him very attractive, and it made the swallow to love him. And he picked up crumbs outside the baker's door when the baker was not looking, and tried to keep himself warm by flapping his wings. And as the temperature grew colder and colder, now he would go to the baker's and pick up crumbs. Crumbs here, CRUMBS. Crumbs means fragments of bread flappings. Crumbs, fragmented of bread. So crumbs here means fragmented, or you can say fragmented. Fragmented means broken part of it or a piece of it, we can say, a broken part from broken part or a piece. So he would go to the baker and pick up those crumbs, and to keep the body warm, he would flap his wings so that his body temperature would remain constant or it would remain warm enough. And after that, but at last he knew that he was going to die. After doing such activities, trying to adjust in that trying to adjust in that surroundings, but he at last knew that now the sparrow knew that he was going to die, and he had just enough strength to fly up to the prince's shoulder once more. Now the whole capacity left in him was that now he could fly from the barber shop to the prince's shoulder. So that distance or the duration, he had that much strength to fly to the prince's shoulder. And Prince shoulder, and goodbye, dear Prince, he murmured. And when he reached from the barber shop to the Prince shoulder, he murmured. Murmured means here whispered, or we can say murmured means whisper. So he whispered in the ears of the prince that, will you let me kiss your hand? He whispered in the king's ear that, will you let me kiss your hand? I am glad that you are going to Egypt at last. And the king replied to this that he was glad that now the swallow was moving to Egypt, and you have stayed too long here, but you must kiss me on the lips. And then the prince tells him that you have stayed quite long time period here in this area. Now, before leaving, you must kiss me on the lips of the prince. For I love you, because the prince also saw that how devotional the sparrow was at his work and how sincerely he did his work, and whatever the king requested or ordered the swallow, he did that also. So therefore the king also began to start loving the swallow. And it is not to Egypt that I am going. And the swallow replied that he was not going to Egypt. I am going to the house of death. And he says that he is going to the house of death means he is going to die. Death is the brother of sleep. Here, brother of sleep means something like, brother of sleep means brother of sleep, or we can say brother here is used for something like something so death is something like a sleep. Means when somebody dies or when the situation of death occurs, it is a complete sleep where where the person who's died do not rise up and wake up. So he says that death is the brother of sleep, and death is the brother of sleep, something like sleep. And he is he not, and asked the prince that is it not that the death is the brother of sleep. And he kissed the happy prince on the lips and fell down at his feet. So fell down at his feet, fell down at his feet means he died. So when he fell down on his feet means when after kissing on the lips of the prince, he died. And at that moment, a curious crack sounded inside the statue, as when suddenly the sparrow died at the feet of the king. Suddenly, inside the statue, a crack sound came inside the statue, as if something had broken. And the cracking was as if something inside was broken, or is inside something broke inside. The fact is that the leaden heart had snapped right in two. So the cracking sound was the sound of the leaden heart. Leaden heart means the heart made up of lead, and you know that lead is an element, and snapped right into two. And the leaden heart snapped right into means it broke right into two pieces as soon as the swallow died at his feet. The fact is that okay, now it certainly was a dreadful hard frost, and it says that the breaking of the leaden heart was certainly due to the dreadfully hard frost, means the extremely bad the temperature, how the cold it became, and that broke the leaden heart into two pieces. Early the next morning, the mayor was walking in the square below in company with the town councillors. Now, the mayor, as you all know, the mayor is the representative of the city. Now, when they came and they passed the column. They passed the column where the statue was placed. The councillor is a member of the municipal councils, and they saw that when they looked up at the statue, dear me, how shabby the happy prince look, he said. And when they saw at the statue, they said, oh my god, that dear me, how shabby means worn out or dirty. So how worn out or the dirty the happy prince looks. And how shabby indeed, cried the town councillor. And the town councillor also said that indeed how shabby it is. And uh, uh, cried at the town who always agreed with the mayor, and they went up to look at it. And the town councillor always accepted or always agreed to what the mayor said, and they went up to look at it. So the ruby has fallen. When they came and they looked at the statue of the prince, they observed that the ruby has fallen out of his sword. His eyes are gone, and he is golden no longer. Now the ruby has been taken out, his eyes have been taken out, and the whole thin coating of the gold has been completely worn out. And and he is no gold is golden no longer, and the statue is now not of gold. And in fact, he is little better than a beggar, and this compared the prince to a beggar, and said that in fact he is a little bit better than those beggars. Now, a little better than a beggar, said the town councillor. And the town councillor also observed that the statue was little better than the beggar. And he is actually a dead, and here is actually a dead bird at his feet. And they observed and they saw um, down to his feet that there was a bird lying dead. Continued the mayor. We must really issue a proclamation that birds are not to be allowed to die here. And the mayor says that now we will really make issue a proclamation. Proclamation means proclaim. Proclamation means a government order. So proclamation means a government order. The orders those government passes, those are called proclamations. So the mayor says that we must issue an government order that the birds are not allowed to die in this city, or the birds are not allowed to die here. And the town clerk made a note of the suggestion, and the town clerk at that moment noticed that what the mayor had said, that they have to issue a government order that no bird is allowed to die here. So they pulled down the statue of the happy prince, and after that they pulled down the statue of the happy prince as he is no longer beautiful. he is no longer in use. So they said that now this statue is no longer beautiful, and it is now no longer it has any use. And as and said the art professor at the university. So the art professor, the professor means a teacher, we can say, of art, said that until and unless when the prince was stabbed with the ruby, with the sapphires, and it was thinly gold coated, that time it was a most beautiful statue or most attractive statue in that city. Now all those have gone out, all those have been taken out. Now the statue is no longer beautiful, and therefore they say that the statue is no longer of use. Means the beauty is compared here. Beauty is being compared that until and unless if something is beautiful, then only it has value. Otherwise, when it is not beautiful, then it does not have any value. Then they melted the statue in a furnace. Then they melted the statue in a furnace. A furnace is a place where metals are melted. And what a strange thing, said the overseer of the workmen at a foundry. Foundry is a place where the furnaces are kept, and furnaces is the place where metals are melted. You may have heard these word furnace, foundry in your science also. In science also, when from iron ores or when from iron ores are extracted. So at that time, furnaces, the process of furnace is used there. And similarly, furnace here is a place where something or where place where metals are melted. And foundry workmen, they said that what a strange thing, a statue of the happy prince have been brought to a foundry because it is not beautiful now and it is of no use. Now after that, this broken lead heart will not melt in the furnace. They said that the broken heart of the broken leaden heart of the prince is not going to melt in the furnace, and we must throw it away. And they said that they must throw away the broken lead heart. So they threw it on the dust heap. They threw the broken heart on the dust heap, a bunch of a dust heap, and where the dead swallow was also lying. At that heap, the dead swallow was also lying dead there, and the heart of the broken king was thrown on that dust heap. After that, a voice from above comes and says, "Bring me the two most precious things in the city." So the God says to his angels that bring him two most precious things in the city. After observing all these incidents, all what happened or after seeing all the situation, he ordered his angel that bring him two things that is precious in the city of the happy prince. The said God to one of his angels, and the angels brought him and the leaden heart and the dead bird. When the God ordered the angels, angels went to the city and brought the leaden heart and the body of the, or we can say, or the dead bird. Now you have rightly chosen, said God. And God also said to the angel that you have rightly chosen. Your decision was totally right. And what you have brought me was really two precious things in that city that was to be for the appraisal. And and he said, for in my garden of paradise. So in the garden of paradise, the place where we can say heaven, in heaven, this little bird shall sing forever more than in my city of gold. And this bird, the dead bird, or we can say the body of the swallow, now he will rise in the heaven, and he shall sing for him ever in the city of gold. And city of gold means the heavenly gold. All the pleasures in the gold are provided, and the happy prince shall praise him. And the happy prince, when the bird will sing forever in that golden city, the prince will praise the bird that how beautifully the bird sang. So, dear student, this was the end of the story by Oscar Wilde, and I would like you to complete all the question answers. I hope that You have written all the difficult meaning of the difficult words in your notebook. And after this, I would like to say that we will. So the next chapter that is going, we are going to read is weathering the storm in Erasmus. Thank you and have a nice day. And please maintain the notebook properly and neatly, and those word meanings too.